Okay, well, we're at the point where the PO is in play, and I gotta worry here. I should have been making a panic fire check for these guys. They're the ones who discovered a heavy weapons unit that outranked them. And that's actually one of the few ways that I can get things kind of rolling here. Let's see if I did not get panic fire there, so that's not a big deal. The PO has entered the fray now, and that means I'm allowed to utilize the PO militia units, which will be helpful for me, as well as, well, conceivably I can move these around. I don't know if there's any real value to that, unless the particular location seems exceptionally exposed in some way, but there just doesn't seem to be a nature of that in the game. Those things are very vulnerable, but right now attacking them, well, if I can knock enough of them out, I can force civilian impressment, which, from what I understand reading some comments online, that's one of the ways that you can kind of push things into causing real effects to take place. Right now, though, I'm not that terribly interested in pushing that because I haven't gotten the chits for it. Now, this turn I drew a health chit, which should be over here, which means I'll put a couple of these. I gotta make sure I put these in the right places. Okay. That means I can actually start working over on Dinovan politically at some point. Not right away, but once I get up to 100 points there. So I've at least got some view forward, but I don't know how big a view it is because to get that 100 points, I have to trigger some major events. So I'm going to have to do something soon, but I don't have a lot of chits here to play. But now with the PO in play, next turn, the Myken are going to start being able to draw, and they're going to start being able to play in the cities as well. How much does that matter? Not much, as long as the political situation is 100% in their favor. They don't really need to or want to play any of their chits. Okay. I pulled my reinforcements on the board, but I haven't yet done my conditional stuff. So what's different here is each of these is going to be turning into a squad of regular guerrilla infantry. And remember, I can gather those together, 3 infantry forming up a platoon or whatever, so that I can I can conduct attacks on bigger units. There are some bigger units that are out in the open that may be juicy targets. I don't think there's much value to them. Unfortunately, this chart, I really should have a photocopy of this because I have to look at it all the time. But actually hitting these units, if I can find headquarters, they're worth something. But most of the Myken units that I would be able to hit aren't very important. No. Myken's bomb. Oh, that's the bomb result here if I do that. Oh, that'll affect all the cities. Hoverbeds are worth 5. Ooh. And they're pretty easy to hit, actually. As I was saying, I have to look them up. If I can find them. Is the biggest problem with the game is the rulebook. The rulebook makes it. Okay, so any attack on a hoverbed eliminates it. Hoverbeds can be attacked in the combat phase after you get rid of anything stacked on top of them. If it's alone in the hex, it can be eliminated during movement by just moving over it. However, if it's a PO hoverbed, the guerrilla will inflict civilian casualties, which hurts my political stance. Now, right now, I'm as low as I can be, so a little bit of casualties isn't going to hurt me. So wiping some of them out might be a good move. On the other hand, wiping out some of those Mikan troops that have no chance of being recovered, really, might be of value as well. So I've got to kind of contemplate what I'm going to do in this second turn here. But I'm not doing anything political, which means I got to take care of my reinforcements, but then I'll go fully. But then I'll go into the guerrilla movement. With all these hover beds undefended, the guerrillas have just marched through. Remember, they have 20 movement points. It just costs 1 to walk through the space and destroy it. Now, there's a problem. It's a PO hover bed, so it causes some civilian casualties, which I have to check. I could negotiate the destruction by sitting next to him, but instead I'm going to do the civilian casualties equal to the number rolled on 1 die. So far I've killed 2, which in and of itself is worth 5 points each on my track. Now, civilian casualties, should be listed here. So damn hard to find anything in this game. Okay, civilian casualties are going to cost, sorry, that's Mikan civilian casualties. What about per guerrilla civilian casualty? They're going to cost 3 points each. So I may be costing myself more morale than I'm gaining from these. Let's see. But by wiping them out, I force civilian impressment, which... So I've just lost 4 of those points, and that's on every city. So I came out ahead. That's not guaranteed, but the point that is guaranteed is that if I knock them all out, there aren't going to be enough of these for the Mikans to be able to ship their goods in. So they have to do civilian impressment, and that has some big time costs. My points can't go below 0, so wiping these out seems like a good move right now, and at this point I'm kind of cursing not having protected them. I think you kind of need to split up your forces to protect those, because I've got enough troops nearby to swipe them all out pretty easily. Even my little 0-1 militia can do this if I so desire. I was wrong about building up forces. 3 of these make me a platoon, but 3 platoons does not give me one of a full company. I have to actually throw a heavy weapons squad in, which, unless the fighting gets really ugly, probably isn't worthwhile, because the heavy weapons squad is, well, it's hard to tell because it's 1 unit versus 1 unit. But a heavy weapon squad is significantly larger. So the total strength I'd be looking at here is 12-15 for these, and then I add another 6-6. But strength isn't cumulative. It's unit versus unit attacks. So I can wipe out a big stack worth of, squads without any problem, because they're assumed to be operating separated from each other. So, yeah, I'm not sure which way I want to go. But I got to be careful with my heavy weapons units, because they will limit how many companies I can put together. Thing I forgot to mention, I use this ability, now that the PO's in the game, to make the Mikan declare which one of their provinces, or which one of the safe zones they're going to attack. And they've chosen to attack this one, which means I'm not going to have anything there. I don't want to lose units to that. I haven't used that other one yet, which is a shame. I probably should have used it in some of my other actions to prevent some of the probes at the very least, because they have an effect there. Okay, so we've moved things around, and it's kind of difficult to tell the pieces apart by their colors. So, for example, this is a Mikan unit, but there are things that look kind of like them, and that's kind of troubling. And this is not a Mikan unit and should be flipped face down. Here, I've got a collection of 3 units, which are going to combine themselves into a little platoon, and they're going to attack here. That's only a 1-to-1 attack, because I'm doubled for the forest. However, I want to make it because losses mean less to me. And if I can cut through that first unit, I can get to some meaty stuff that I'd really love to hit. I got an exchange. That means the defender is destroyed, and he's actually just removed. This is the 1C2. No, I can't read. Jesus, these look the same. Oh, this is a unit of the 1C3 here. Okay. Now, I can disband units and rebuild others, so I can end up with one of these full platoons back in play at some point if I juggle my points correctly during the reinforcement phase. This guy has to take losses, though. He has to eliminate units whose attack factors are equal to the defender, both counted at printed strength. I can break down before taking losses, though. And that means I'm going to lose 2 of these full 1-3 units. Because it's an exchange or an attack, I am actually eliminated. I can't just spend combat strength here, right? Guerrilla and Mycan units may break down before taking losses and may, instead of eliminating units, pay their full manpower cost from the register of unassigned manpower. Well, I could actually break these down. See that I have to lose 2 of these. This is where you kind of get to cheat in the strength in a sort of way. The guerrilla, this is going to be a regular infantry platoon. It's going to cost me 90 to replace this thing. I'm sorry, 30 to replace this thing because it's just 2 squads. In order to do that, I can destroy 2 squads somewhere else on the board. And I think I will indeed find myself 2 squads that I can delete instead. Okay. Now I can recover my unit back up to a platoon. You can do this at any time, this kind of manipulation. And I can attack this unit, and I'm attacking this at 2-to-1 because it doesn't get the terrain advantage. Now, the defender could have done the same, and he probably would have as well. He had this. I want to lose another 2-2 unit. There should be reinforcements there. Let me get my militia on the board. I don't think I had any points yet, so that's not going to affect my point creation. Let's get the right color militia on the board. I just forgot to do these during reinforcement phase. I want these guys because they're good at probing. And I think those are the only ones I have. Okay. So now I can kill one of these instead. And this will generate the same number of points. It's 1C3, I think. Over here. And now, can he make another attack on that same unit? That's a good question. I don't believe I can attack the same unit again. I gotta find the rule that governs that. So another rule by exception, you're allowed to make combined attacks with Mycan infantry who are in the same place. I can't find the rule that I'm finding. Oh, a unit. Okay. If the top unit is eliminated or retreated, the attacking unit can go on. But I did not succeed in forcing that unit to retreat, so I'm not going to be able to hurt these guys. An exchange isn't good enough. I needed an E result to clear that guy out, or an R result to start picking at the tanks and such not. And those two could have been protected with manpower losses. So this now immediately hides, and that means there's not a whole hell of a lot I can do about it. I know there's a powerful unit there that I probably can't attack easily, which is kind of painful. This looks like a really hard game for the Mycans to get a real grasp on trying to wipe out the enemy. I'll say, I don't know, if you look at Vietnam, once the enemy starts revealing larger forces, it's fairly easy to bring the firepower together to wipe them out. In this, it doesn't feel like it's going to be that easy. Certainly, I could go in with something like this and blow that thing up, I guess. You know, I don't know. That's got a strength of 10. I'd be attacking at 1-to-1, but I could do it at range where I wouldn't get hurt because I have a range of 2 on this weapon. And I could use other ranged weapons to hit. All right, we had another attack that I wanted to do here, which is going to be a 3-to-1 attack on that militia. Now, militia can't take manpower losses. And that militia's there to protect the other unit. That takes a 10R that actually destroys the militia, which means, if I can find where he goes, shit, I can't tell the coloring. Like, I put this here, it doesn't quite look the same as that. It looks kind of greener, but it's obviously not quite that green. I don't know. But I know that was that. So now I've got a 6-to-2 attack there. That's a 3-to-1. And I could have actually done this at range. I'm stupid for not. Well, I want to be on that town, I guess. All right. And I roll a 6, which means I have to retreat. And retreat is 1 hex or 2? 1 hex. So I'm pushed out of there. And he again knows I have a strong force in that location. And that, I believe, puts us to the end of the guerrilla combat. And we go to the Mycan phase. And he's got a real problem, which is that he doesn't have enough hover tanks to supply everything. So he may have to declare impressing the local transport capabilities to take things over instead of just the PO there. So I'm on the Mycan side of the turn. My attack is scheduled, for over here, and well, obviously I'm not going to actually make it because that's cleared out. I also have a problem. Enough hovercraft have been destroyed that I only have 1, 2, 3, 4 left. Maybe 3. Maybe I'm not counting right. No, 4. 4 left. And unfortunately, that's not enough. Minimal? I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm stuck with civilian impressment for the rest of the game because those cannot be replenished. I find that a little disturbing because this seems like the most usual reason that you're going to go to impressment is that you have no option, and thus I'm never going to reverse that decision. Well, one thing it allows me to do though is to pull my hover platform back and not take losses on that. From now on, I'm allowed to trace wherever, pretty much wherever I like. Now, I'm assuming I still have to use the cut, so that still becomes an important facet in the whole production. It's not a big deal. I don't know what that transport consists of, you know, because conceivably, well, I actually wouldn't have to use the cut because I can come up this way or through the dunes or something, I guess. So I think my transport is assured now. I no longer have to worry about maintaining the thing. The problem is, well, the cost every turn is going to be 45 to the national problem, which shoots all of these up, and we're starting to see discontent in the cities. At the same time, I lose the ability to draw militia anymore. These are all gone from the game. And they had been useful, so that kind of sucks to lose them. But, shit, I put them in the wrong pile. They look so similar in color. Jesus, I can't even tell them apart in this light. I don't know. Maybe I got them all. See, I can't tell. These look different. These look slightly different from those. And they look slightly different from those too. So, I don't know. Alright. But anyway, I've been deprived of that. And now I gotta try to operate without them. We'll see what I can kill. I feel like I have a lot of things to cope with. I'm going to risk high dial fire here. I could send this thing in. But its ranged attack means it's not good at probing. So I'm going to move here. I'm going to probe this sucker. And there's an immediate chance on a 4 through 6 that I end up doing the excessive firepower. And I do not. So now it has a chance of bouncing away. And it succeeds in that. And now I kind of want to blast that unit because it's a heavy weapons unit. But the thing is, I can't guarantee a kill on it. That's the problem. Even if I, manage to get my my gun plats and stuff to attack it at full strength, it's going to be the 2-to-1 table. Unless I get a 1, I'm not going to kill it. Can I do better? Can I do 3-to-1? This thing is a 10 strength. I know about this as well. So that I can get 2-to-1 against again. And I can't combine these units. So I don't really have good options for attacking. I guess I'll just keep plugging away at that and see if I can hit it. Okay, well, we got problems. I managed to hem this guy in and get an attack on him, and I'm trying to do the same here, but now I finally rolled a high dial fire. Now, it's 50% of the time it should happen, so I got pretty lucky with my die rolls, actually. But now I make an immediate series of attacks against everything adjacent to me that's either guerrilla or even PO units. So I got to be careful not to use PO units for this. I could actually be using the PO militia for probes. That might be safer. Not being so stupid, right? So now this is multiplied by 5, so I've got a 10 strength against a 10 defense, because that's the high dial fire effect. So I'm only getting a 1-to-1 attack on it anyway. That's not terribly good. And I get the good result. I get an eliminate. Unfortunately, this isn't a heavy weapons unit. This is something that can be rebuilt. So boom, it's dead. E's do not allow you to recuperate your forces. But I've taken 30% of squad. So one of my squads is worth 15. Shouldn't have to do this. Should be 5 hits, right? Five hits on me. I don't have 5 hits. I'll take a loss on this unit. The 1C2 doesn't matter too much. That gives me 15, so I'm up 10. And you can see I'm taking some significant losses here. So now I have to deal with the high dial fire, and that has multiple effects. One, it affects public. I'm going to have to find this somewhere. Not seeing it. I just keep going through this. I'm pretty sure there is one here. And I'm just not seeing it. Okay, let's look back at high dial fire and see if there's a rule about this. Or panic fire. There are political costs. See the action in a city. Okay. All right. So yeah, this wasn't in a city, so there's no political cost. However, the Docanavians are alarmed. And this means that there's going to be some of them entering the game. Gotta try to fix the staple situation here before I rip this one out. So the first turn, we're going to get the Maul and 6 Dark Leaders. What the hell is that? Well, we're going to look through their chits and see if we can figure out what the hell that is. And when does that happen? These are going to show up on Dune or Mound hexes immediately as they're triggered. We got problems. This is pretty big. The rest of them are kind of weak. I'm not sure where they're going to show up. I may want to spread them out a little bit, but I think I want to put the big one to defend the sail, just to prevent that thing from being destroyed, because that thing, I think, is a potent tool. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to start pulling PO units out. That's fine. And I'm going to start using them, I think they have unlimited movement as well, to probe other things. And again, I'm going to be using die rolls for the probing. There's nothing too exciting here. I'll probe this unit up here. Now what's bonus about this is I get to see what it is. Ooh, I want this. The danger is that thing can actually cause high dial fire. It's going to try to hop out of there. And it looks to me like it succeeds. But now I'm going to chase that thing down, because I want to get something after that. I think I'm going to keep using, because I know that this is vulnerable to high dial fire, I'm going to keep using my my PO units to try to chase it down, rather than using my actual squads, because I'd have to send a pretty big force to take that sucker out. One problem that I see already with the rules: you're allowed to at any time dismantle units and rebuild units and stuff like that. Okay, you're allowed at any time to dismantle units. You can't rebuild them until the reinforcement phase. So it's not as bad as I thought. So I can say, well, this guy's done his job. I can put him on the chart, and then I'll rebuild something later, and that's fine. But that's a way of getting my units out of maybe risky positions. They do their job, and then they are no longer at risk out there. That kind of troubles me a little bit. I've got to try to use that kind of ability, though, within the game. Theoretically, you could also disband a unit just before it's going to be attacked. There are things you can't rebuild, though, and that, you know, so like this political action committee or whatever can't be rebuilt. So if I dismantle it, it screws me over anyhow. And over here we've got an ambush possibility, which could cause problems for the PO unit. Let's take a look at ambush. It's got to be in here somewhere. Okay, 1 through 4, the probing unit's been ambushed. 5, I think that's no ambush, and I'm stuck as though I didn't withdraw, which means he's been discovered, and now I can send stuff after him to kill him. And that's important because there's both point value to destroying those things, and if I can get all 3 of them, the fight for the cities is over. Those suckers aren't able to I won't be allowed draws, for example, as the rebels. Now, One way I can hide them is I can slip them into the cities, into these safe zones. That puts them at some risk though too, because they could end up pumping out in the cities. And I'm not quite sure that the hop ability applies there. I read somebody said, I wouldn't have assumed it did, but what I read of somebody's statement about it made them sound like they considered that it does work that way. So I'm going to have to kind of pay attention to that. I could, of course, also throw them into the safe zones, and they're safer there because I can know whether or not a particular safe zone is being attacked as long as I have this. And speaking of which, that sucker gets a die roll on it. Oh, jeez. I've been forgetting to use this satellite one, which can't be screwed with. Okay. Yeah, it takes a 6 to wipe out this other ability that I used. So, I may not want to use that ability much if I'm worried about the safe zones, especially if I think the Mycan are going to call on their reinforcements. So we didn't have an ambush, now I gotta worry. Alright, well, we'll see what I do. It just attacked me a bunch of farmers here instead of regular units. So now what happens when I have farmers? Okay. Okay. That doesn't seem likely to happen. Trying to find my farmers, though. There we go. Okay, when guerrilla units are revealed, shit. Okay. If it's a dummy, it's removed from play. If it's a farmer, it remains on the board, and the Mycan consults the probe table for civilian and or Mycan casualties. If the probed unit is infantry, heavy weapons, it may remain in the hex or attempt to guerrilla help. Okay. So to do this, I think I roll twice. Nope, only once, and we see what the effect is. So, I get a 7, I kill no civilians and no Mycans. I got away luckily there. Now, these have been probed, so I can leave them there. The same person who brought up about the hops in the city, which I still didn't look up, whether he also described that he found that the farmers were potentially a problem. When you probe a hex, what happens is the question. All units in the hex are revealed. Now, what he claimed was, oh, farmers can kind of shield the other units under them. I see nothing that seems to indicate that. You deal with the probing of the farmers, and then you can attack whatever's there if you find it. So farmers can be used to shield them in the sense that they'll cause problems for the Mycan when they make their probe, but then they don't serve any other real purpose. They're not going to prevent you from attacking the top actual unit. Okay, and I don't know if that's the solution he came up with. So I've got one more here. I've got to look at my my guns and see, do I have ones? Am I sufficient in terms of what I found to use my guns? Because I've got one gun is definitely needed for this, one for this, and that's all I've got found. But that's okay, because I'm not sure these things are hidden. I'll have to look at that as well. But what are my odds of that being sufficient for me to be willing to, stop here? Or should I do more probes? Do I have more attacks I want to take? Clearly, I was willing to do more probes when I'm using those 2-point units, and I got another one here. But am I willing to commit more of my 1-point units to this? I also may want to consider throwing units out into the farmland. The reason is, my enemy can slip into the city if I don't have units there. But if I have units defending that, he's got a harder time making it into the city. He's got to use the infiltration rules. These 2-point units are so dangerous. I just ran into a 3-point unit. Boom! I've got to attack. I've got a high dial fire on it. I'm 10 to 6. That's 1 to 1. I retreat. Which means the probe was a failure. And I've just generated another one of those native sets showing up. Bam. It's a per turn thing, so I could do as much panic fire as I like this turn without pissing them off anymore. That's kind of cute. Yeah, I still don't know whether or not they should be face up. I gotta look that up still. I revealed a couple more of these, got them pinned down, and now I'm gonna start my attacks. I have to make that decision at a particular time. Basically, I can't go probe more things after I've started my attacks. But I think I'm ready now. And I'm going to slide this under here. It's got a range of 2. I'm going to fire all 24 points of it at these guys. There's a 12 there. And they can shoot back, but that's okay. So I'm on the 2 to 1 table. And I'm going to cause a 10R to the defender. The defender is a heavy weapons squad, so I looked that up. What did I say, 10R? That means they're going to take 3 hits, which doesn't really seem worth having done. And now they pull away. And I can kind of shift these guys because they don't much matter. I think I don't want to allow people to just dissolve units with no reason, like to avoid a fight. That seems unfair somehow. I'm not sure. It's not like the guerrillas can really take a good use of that. So I don't know. It may not be that big a deal to allow the Mycans to dissolve units to withdraw from a fight. They don't generally want to. The guerrillas aren't generally going to be hunting Mycan infantry. They're going to be trying to clear them out of areas like the areas around the cities, or they're going to be trying to destroy these tank-like units, which I can't rebuild if I dissolve them. So, well, I'll continue with the rest of my assaults and see what comes of it all. Managed to kill that Committee of Responsibility. A lucky shot, actually, because I thought I had better odds than I did. These guys are only 24. That thing's doubled. It's a 14. I could only attack on the 1-to-1. Of course, I was immune to any possible damage. And then I also managed to kill off a couple of those infantry units. One of them forced a retreat of my unit. The other one has me under a PO unit, which doesn't really feel terribly safe. So some of my heavy weapons, are the tank type items, are likely to get wiped out here. And that leads me to wonder, geez, are those things even worth wiping out? Not the tanks, but these infantry squads. The problem is if I don't, they produce militia and just keep cranking out more troops, and I'm facing this snowballing effect. And the only thing in my favor here as the Mycan is I only have to last 12 turns. If this game lasted any longer, it would be clear it's going to collapse on me. But I don't know if I can make it if I'm going to be suffering casualties to my tanks and stuff. I think that's the end of the turn, and that pushes us up here. And I might be considering giving... Jeez, I completely forgot to use that sucker again. Most useless chip in the game because I can never use it. I think it's awesome, actually, because I can prevent, probes with it. But anyway, there we have it. I think I'm going to start rolling for reinforcements to try to bring this extra unit in. The extra what? It's a whole company. To see if I can, hold out a little longer. But, well, at least the Committee on Responsibility, that was 40 points. So I've got to try to figure out where to hide the rebel counters of that. You know, when I call this out, I'll be able to find out, hey, or when I see the reinforcement roll, I'll be able to figure out that, hey, I don't have a problem here. I don't have to try to give that information, so I don't have to risk this. And then I can hide some of my committees because I'm not so sure I want them out there anymore. I don't like seeing them die. They're dangerous. 40 points, it was really hard for me to get 40 points. As we push into the third turn here of Bloodtree Rebellion, we can see the rebels aren't doing very well in terms of political support, mainly because we lost a political committee. The weather, first time we had a die roll for it, it ends up clear, which is the same as what we've had. What that basically means is that the rivers don't flood into these tuber plains. So there's still these horrible tree line clutters. Once they flood, this becomes all kind of a wetlands, which the hovercraft can then move through, which they couldn't otherwise. And I don't know how much that's actually reflected in here. There should be something else here, I think. So I remember there being specific rules about them not being able to move through certain terrain, but unfortunately that's not covered there. Maybe the star. No. Guerrilla and glyph units. There are things that can't even enter that stuff, I think. And it's difficult to ascertain because it's not on the damn terrain effects chart, so I have to try to fish out of the rules where that information is and what it applies to. And likewise with the cut, there's things that can't go through the mountain. And I've had hover tanks and stuff in the mountain, so I don't know, I may be cheating. You'd think that terrain effects chart would hold this. GDW is usually pretty good, and this is not a tremendous, I don't remember if it was 77 or 79. People have pointed to it at different places, but I see nothing in my rule book that tells me. Oh, here we go. Copyright 79. All right. Well, that must be where they got it from. What do we got here? Right. So both sides this time have gotten a draw. And what's going to be, and so now we see some draws on the Mikan side. And what's going to be new is now there's a counter draw phase. The stuff that's in your safe zone isn't so safe. Basically what I'm going to do is randomly roll on each thing. So each person gets a shot, and I don't know who goes first. I don't think it matters too much. I just saw it, but my brain doesn't read things well. The Mikan draws first. Okay, I guess. So I'm going to start with clearing, and I'll just roll a die and say, okay, I got a 9. So I have taken this, which is a pro-Mikan counter for the government. And it was kind of nice to know that was here. That could be used as a counter. You can counter chits as they're played. But now, at the same time, I guess, I don't know. It's not really covered. They're supposed to alternate. The gorilla draws first. Okay, well, the gorilla drew this one first. And then these guys drew here. Now the gorilla gets a roll here, and that's 1 through 5. And that'll be this one. And it goes in the same territory, I believe. I seem to remember that. And we got a 9. It's going to pull this bomb. And that's an out of power bomb. I can't use that except to counter a bomb played in Dinovan or whatever. And now we roll for Robachi. And we're going to take this retail section. And this is kind of cool because that's one that we could actually use. And we'll go against him. And we get one we could use. Not that we have any terrible desire to use these chits right away. Not until, they're canceling something out, essentially. And now we go back on the sequence to the guerrilla political phase. And at this point, the guerrilla has the opportunity to show some of his support. Now the problem is, he's not at 100 points anywhere, so he still doesn't have any availability to declare support for any of these things. The government probably doesn't really want to represent any. That's just going to destabilize the situation in some way. He might be able to reduce the points, but then that might open things up to some of these chits that could cause problems. So I'm going to let the points get up a little higher before I even consider playing any of these. Which means, well, before we actually hit that, we hit the reinforcement phase. And this is the third turn. We're going to get another one of these. I'm not quite sure where to put it. I feel like I've got a decent amount of power to start exerting against Robochi because of the glyph forces that I have. Enough to fight my way in? I don't know, and what would it do me? I mean, that's the whole thing, is now I have to go back here and read this and see what I could get here. And if I could cause panic fire, that would be awesome. So yeah, I think I'm going to put this over here with the intention of having more forces going into putting a real threat on Robochi. Because if I can put a threat on Robochi, I think I can do some good stuff overall. And now the other guy is going to get a roll for his reinforcement. And it's only a 1 or a 2 that matters. I don't know which is which, but that does not matter. That means he's declared, I'm not going into any of these, because the glyphs aren't in the war yet. He can roll for reinforcements and attack a sanctuary if the glyphs are in the war. We go to the political phases. I'm not doing anything during them. And now we're back to the guerrilla movement phase. And I think we may see an infiltration attempt being taken. But I have to look at some rolls before I can be sure of that. Again, nothing, fits together and makes perfect sense in this game because it is so different in so many ways. And unfortunately, it's so badly organized that there's no easy way to find this stuff. I found the movement prohibitions, and I've cheated a little bit. Hoverbeds and hovercraft cannot enter forest or mountain except on the roads. They cannot enter dry tuber plains, but they can enter the wet ones. They cannot enter a destroyed cut. Lasers, flex missiles, Mikan headquarters, and TEDx are tracked. They can't enter forest, mountain, ocean, lake, or tuber plains except on roads. They cannot cross rivers. Well, one of the things I cheated with was I sent the missile unit out to here to make an attack, I believe. Not sure it actually had to go that close. It's a laser, even if it looks like a missile. I don't know where my missiles are. I don't know. Can't find my units. Yeah, I have some missiles somewhere, and I don't know what I did with them. I hope they're not just gone. Looks like these are the special SAMS missiles, which would be really difficult to use if they can't travel through the forests. So they become less valuable. And I don't know what hover tanks. What can they go through? They can't enter forest or mountain. Well, they've been doing that all over the place. So I really don't know. I'll try to follow the rules, and I'll write these things down on the terrain chart, because I will not be able to remember all these restrictions unless it's on the player aid, where you'd think it would be, huh? I'm going to fight my way through the rules. We're going to move these guys 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 free into the city. I got to be kind of careful how I'm entering. Here I'm entering through 1235, which is here. that's okay. Because what I want to do is I want to hit this police unit. I wasn't really paying too much attention, but those things are worth something. They're worth 10 points if I can knock them out. The garrisons and such are not worth anything to me, so those don't really help me much. And I'm going to slip in. Now, I'm not allowed to stack in the city, but that's okay, because the way I'm looking at it is I'm only very temporarily stacking as I reach here and here. And the infiltration is automatic because there's nothing in the farms that are associated with the city. And then I'll turn these in for, and I could have done this earlier, for one of these units. I'm going to turn that over to indicate that I've moved it. That may not be the best location. I could actually move here. It's free to move within the city. I don't know where I really want to be. But knocking out these police units is worth extra points, and then maybe I can cause problems like panic fire in the city, which will cause additional issues. So I'm kind of going for Robotree Put and trying to drive it up. It may not be my highest goal here, because when I look at my chits, well, retail and transport are quite high here. This one has health, and I could do some demonstrations and boost my points around that. So I might want to get into Dinavin as well. I'll continue moving my forces and then kind of show you what comes up out of it and whether there's any attacks. I had already started moving all the militias here before I ran into problems, and I fixed a lot of my problems. I put notes on the terrain effects charts. I made a photocopy of this to make it something of a play aid, and then I kind of badly put a staple to replace the destroyed one, which I tried to fix on its own, and that didn't work. I've decided I'm going to force I'm going to enforce these guys staying where they are, so that they can be attacked this turn. But after this turn, they'll have an opportunity to withdraw from where they couldn't have been. In fact, be forced to withdraw to where they couldn't have been, into some place they're allowed to be, either along the roads or in the cities. And then also, well, I've got some, in addition to the attacks that I'm making on these units, the hover tanks that are present, I've also got attacks within the city. But what we're going to see is that the Mycan don't really have a capability of fighting in the forests without gathering a large unit that, may be more expensive than they can afford, which means that the rebels are going to have more capacity to build up their rebellion than they have so far. And I think they're doing pretty well, actually, so far. Let's see what we got here. So I'm going to open up with an attack from these glyph unit into here. Now that's only 6 to 4. That's really the best I can do. I've got a heavy weapons unit there if I want to try it. The problem with that is, I believe if the glyphs take any damage, they get killed. I don't know if I want to do. I don't know if that's worth my time. I think I'll hold them off for a massive assault, because if they take casualties, they're just dead. And I'm only hitting it at 1-to-1. So we'll hit... Oh, I'm sorry. No, that's 3-to-1. How's the 3-to-1 chart? Where's the combat table? 3-to-1. Still has a fair chance of the attacker being hit, but I'm going to go for it because I'd rather not reveal that heavy weapons unit. Remember, the mountain doesn't help the hover tank. Of course, it shouldn't even be there. I get a retreat result, which is fine. I'm going to reveal this and fire. That also is at 3-to-1. I get an exchange. That's not a great result for me, mainly because both sides are able... I'm not going to destroy that tank. I'm just going to do manpower losses. So what is that tank? That tank is 4. That's going to be 2... Shit, it's a heavy weapons unit. I got to take the whole hit on it. exchange is that the 2 units end up eliminated. I can't break a heavy weapons into anything. So my heavy weapons squad is going to cost me 30. I don't have 30, so I'm going to have to cash in points to get 30. Infantry squads are 15. That means I'm going to kill off 2 infantry squads to do this. And that's kind of a pain in the ass of these more fragile units. I'll kill this one. Okay. Yeah, okay. I'm going to leave this one here. I'm going to instead kill, I threw one over into the safety zone. I actually have another unit over there too. This is all hidden, so I could just keep this like this, but that's just a dummy sitting there. It's basically a, hey, if he ends up rolling in there, he might get nothing of value, which I view as more valuable than having the counter out where I could have had it. Okay, now, what about the tank? That has to take its hit too. And that is, I believe, a hovercraft. That's going to cost 30. Given their lack of use, I'm taking it as a kill. It doesn't go there. Jesus. Alright. And I don't know what this extra dummy counter is for. I'm only supposed to set up 2, and I don't seem to get any as reinforcements, so I don't know why that extra counter exists. Okay. This is now hidden, but I can peek at it. And yes, it's dirty, so anybody would know what it is, so I'd have to use one of these markers. Not using any of them now, because I'm pretty much not stacking anywhere, except in these zones where I'm safe. Here, this is going to be a 1-to-1 attack. Do I really want to make that? No, not terribly, but yeah, I'm not going to even attack. I don't know why I moved there. Okay, into the city. We're going to hit our police. And we've got a 4-to-1 here. Now, I don't think the population multiplier is a defensive multiplier, but maybe I'm mistaken about that. I'm going to look that up because something tells me it is. If it has any population, it counts as a city hex, which means the defender's doubled. So here I have a 2-to-1 attack going on in there. And we make a quick roll. That's going to be a 20R. That's enough to destroy this. I don't know how long it takes for them to recover. They come in later. But right now, that's a civil police. That's going to give me 10 more points. Woo! And now I can hide. And I hope I can hop out of there. Hopping out doesn't necessarily translate from this chart to that very well, but we can, and yes, there appears to be a hop roll for this. We can pretend. And likewise, I have other attacks here. That's also a 2-to-1. That's going to also be a 10-point bonus. Just knocking out those police. And then here I'm doing one as well. Oh, I gotta retreat here. I'll retreat into City Hex because that's safer for me. Okay, so now I gotta look up when these things recover. And that'll be in the reinforcements rolls for POs. I know this, I know this. When a PO unit's lost, it returns 3 turns later. Okay. So this is turn 3, so it'll return in turn 6. And let's see. That will be, I think, the extent of the combat that I'm going to do with the guerrillas here. So that puts me over into the Mycan phase. It caught another error. Panic fire only happens when the attack strength is greater than the attack strength of the probing unit. I don't have to worry about the defense strength because I'm not actually necessarily engaging when I'm probing, so I can prepare for the fight or whatever. Oops. Yeah, we've been making a lot of mistakes here. This is a tough game to get a grasp on for me, and you know, I'm learning as I'm going, and I'm sorry those of you who thought, gee, somebody showing the game who knows it. No, obviously not. I tried to make that clear to begin with. All right. So now the Mycan have a difficult job ahead of them, which is, well, what they can do to change the point situation and to kind of limit and hurt the rebels at this point. One of the things I'd love to do is to wipe out these units that have gotten embedded in the cities. And I think I've got some advantages there just by putting units around them. I'll be able to attack them more easily. Let's see. Mycan made several attacks, many of which were effective, but it's hard to tell how much value they really got out of them. There's a Mycan unit that should be in this pile. I've pretty much pulled everything back. I kind of made an error with them. I tracked down units here. I used all my big gun plats to attack the heavy units that were out and available and viewable, and this one I don't want to be seen either. And that didn't work out terribly in my favor. And then the attacks here, I used hover tanks to move into the city. Apparently they can work in the city just fine. And again, not necessarily great results. Just some pretty heavy trade-offs in terms of the damage. So I'm damaging guerrillas, but I'm losing most of my command. Right now I've got basically a full company here still available. But you can see this company is largely knocked out. It's at one squad left, and then here we've got a couple of platoons. Really, most of this is in existence. If I trade this squad for this one, I'm okay. But I feel like I'm really kind of running down in terms of what I have available still, which is a painful feeling. I ran into some farmers here, no big deal. I don't know what else to say really, except that I guess it's the next turn.